are they sleeping at night right now? Would be, I think, for me, that's the critical question. So, are they going to bed? Those involved with the brand and this campaign, thinking, "You beauty, we've done exactly what we wanted to do," or are they going to bed saying, "Oh my goodness me, we're being aligned with eugenics"? I don't know.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, Freddie.
Hey, Russ. How you doing?
I'm just happy as. I mean, AdMission podcast. Who doesn't want to talk about ads and all things that relate, right? I mean, seriously, I could sit here and do it all day.
That's good. I'm glad you're in a good mood. We've got like getting right into it. Like this week, I'm not sure if you're aware. Like, there's a lot to talk about. Do you know who Sydney Sweeney is?
I do.
Russ?
I do. I have soap at home.
Oh no!
No, it isn't the specific Sydney Sweeney soap. It was soap that was made on Gruen, which is the Russell Howcroft variant of Sydney Sweeney soap, which was. I'll send you a photograph if you like. So not of me using it, I guarantee you with that. But the Sydney Sweeney. Yes, I do know who Sydney Sweeney is. Yep.
Well, that's she's caused her and American Eagle, an American denim company, have caused. They've just set the marketing world on fire, haven't they? Really,
Yeah.
that my LinkedIn is nothing but commentary on this latest campaign.
Okay.
So for a bit of context, American Eagle launched its fall 2025 denim campaign with Miss Sweeney under the tagline "Sydney Sweeney has great jeans." Let's take a look at the spot before we get too far into it.
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has great jeans.
You see what I did there, right?
Okay, so there's
so that's
controversy, right?
There's controversy. So what we've just seen is, I guess, the remaining aspects of the campaign. So there was another one in which, again, riffing on this genes, like genetics, play on words, double entendre. There was another video where Sydney Sweeney was discussing that, my body's composition is determined by my genes. And, the camera pans over her body and she then says, "My genes are blue." And this particular video has prompted, I guess, accusations of American Eagle promoting eugenic ideals, sort of invoking Aryan beauty standards. And people are still going nuts about it. It's become sort of this lightning rod for, again, another culture war. What's I guess maybe to start off, is this a good ad? Is this a good campaign? Does it work?
I can see how it gets written, and you can absolutely, because, in Sydney Sweeney, tell me if I'm wrong, but in Sydney Sweeney, you've got talent that doesn't mind the idea of creating some sort of controversy or, being talked about. Now, whether she's currently enjoying being talked about in this fashion, I've got no clue. But what we do know is that she's quite happy to be talked about. So you've got the right talent, and you can also see how you get to this point that people look good in a pair of jeans, because there's some truth to that. Right? I mean, not everyone looks good in jeans, but my goodness me, there is an element of truth to that. The other thing which is also true is that genes do matter, as in the GENES. That is, genes do have an effect on how you look. So, right, it's sort of, that is the reality. And so that doesn't mean I am into eugenics. I just think that's, if we think about it in a horse context, I would be very surprised if a Melbourne Cup winning horse or an Everest winning horse didn't come from genes that were clearly designed in order to win those races, right? So,
do you think when they were coming up with this campaign and they first sort of laid out this pun and say, "Oh, we're going to base a campaign around this," do you think anyone in the room said, "Hold up, we might be venturing into dangerous territory here. Do you think there was any conception that this might cause a stir?
Yes. Yeah, I reckon, and then, but they maybe didn't realise how much. And in a way, I think what might have happened is they knew that they were after culture impact. And why do you want to go for a cultural impact? Well, because cultural impact you don't pay for. And there was a phase in the ad game, let's say 15 years ago, where the creative brief would literally have on it, you know how you have those stupid boxes on creative briefs, and one of the stupid boxes would say, how will this campaign make a cultural impact? Right? Because people were recognising 15 years ago that it was increasingly tough just to rely on the ad to have an impact. So they would have absolutely wanted to create noise beyond just the ad. And of course, we've got the vehicle to create noise. Even more significant, we've got the vehicle to generate outrage or create outrage. And outrage, of course, gets the algorithms whirring. And there's nothing like an algo whirring, in the case study video. Geez, you wouldn't believe how many algos we got whirring. So then it becomes a case study in impact over investment. So a small investment for a outsized impact would be, I think, what they were after. I think that would have been the intention. So are they sleeping at night right now would be, I think, for me, that's the critical question. So are they going to bed, those involved with the brand and this campaign, thinking, you beauty, we've done exactly what we wanted to do? Or are they going to bed saying, oh my goodness me, we're being aligned with eugenics? I don't know. You would know way more than me, Freddie, on where you reckon the line is.
It's tough to say. I mean, obviously, it feels like we're in this moment right now. Obviously, with the pendulum swinging, with the administration right now here in the US.
Yeah.
I saw in one commentary about this specific campaign. I think it was the Wall Street Journal. Saying that, this campaign is at the beginning of a new era for marketing, which really, it sounds like more of a return to just like kind of vaguely sexist.
Yeah.
Well, not even vaguely, just incredibly sexualized.
Well, sexualized. It is sexualizing the female form, no question.
And I guess, does anything like it feel, I guess, familiar to the ads of, say, the late 90s or something like that?
Well, even earlier. I mean, you are reminding me of a commercial for there was a brand called Bluegrass, and the headline, it was a poster, and it was "Get Your," and there was a picture of a bottom, and then it was into bluegrass. So it was purely a close-up photograph of a female bottom in jeans. So that would be 1978. But you know what? If you go back to the 70s was, in an advertising sense, way raunchier than any other decade. Right? 70s was completely out there. Big M advertising comes to mind, where you wouldn't believe Freddie. I mean, I would caution you against downloading a Big M commercial. Not really, but it was, anything. Chico Roll comes to mind. It was way more sexualized in the past, and but I get the political context and I get the presidential and the American context because he appears to employ people on the basis of whether they look good or not. There's a lot of, I've heard commentary around Hexeth. They reckon the only reason why he's got the job is because he's a good-looking dude. Right.
It's for little else apparently.
So whether that be true or not,
but it does. It's part of like this cultural moment, I guess, where I think American Eagle has over the past few years been praised for its sort of inclusivity approach and sort of the diversity of its models. So one criticism of this is that it feels just very jarring that they've gone from I guess, and this is a bit of a pattern in corporate America, I guess, what we're seeing with sort of DEI rollbacks, and I guess maybe why this this campaign seems to have hit such a note is that it feels symbolic of, to some people, what feels like cultural regression. The undoing of progress that was made over the past few years.
Well, and you know what? It's quite difficult because I grew up with ads like that. So whilst I'm enlightened, Freddie, as you know, it's very hard for me to ignore the fact that I think jeans are sexy. Right? So so I have to be honest with you that there is a truism for me because that's what I absolutely was brought up to believe that was the case, and that there was it was a formative years form of marketing, which I think has probably had an effect. And I also think for me, there's some truth to it as well. So I don't know, does that just make me an old white bloke? Probably. It's also reminded me of a campaign that I was involved in, which you just would not do now, but maybe in the new America you would. We launched the Reebok Step. And the Reebok Step was nothing more than a plastic step, like branded Reebok. And the step aerobics became this huge deal. And the line for Reebok Step was, helps you look good from behind. Now, so, I don't know, maybe in the new America, that might resurface, Freddie. You never know.
Maybe. I mean, I guess my confusion, maybe not confusion with it though, would be like, is this going to work in the sense that, sure, there was like cultural progression and whatnot, but if you're selling jeans to women, like going in with like an overtly kind of male gaze, is that the way to do it?
No.
Does that make for effective advertising? I would imagine probably not.
It's a tough
that's
one.
Why, I do lean they're probably just going for outrage to increase awareness, but I'm not sure it's going to convert.
It's very interesting, you reminded me of a commercial that I was involved in for an underwear brand, and what actually happened was the director and the creative director sort of sexualized the underwear, and it was all about where the camera went, and it was a huge mistake, massive mistake. I'm not even sure whether the ad actually got to air, and so there was a very strong lesson for me around precisely as you're saying. Okay, so who is the consumer for this brand, and are they going to appreciate what you've just done? Because what you've done is you've used the camera as a bloke, and yet the bloke isn't buying the jeans. So it's a great reminder, Freddie, that every single input into the crafting of advertising absolutely matters, and the language matters, but the camera matters. The camera angles matter, and you can really study that commercial, that Sydney Sweeney commercial, on the basis of camera angles. The opening shot, there's a little bit of cleavage there, right? So there'd be a long discussion about just how much.
Yeah, there would have been some actually bloody weird conference rooms.
Totally.
It's nuts to imagine, really. And everyone would have had to. It's strange to think that they would have received the cut, and everyone would have sat there, at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, and said, "Are we all feeling sufficiently creeped out? Press send, let's go."
Press send, nicely done. So, Freddie, remind me at the end of the podcast, I've got to talk to you about a Joe Aston Rampart end line. All right, so because we had Joe Aston on last week. And we sort of promised him an end line, didn't we? So we must make sure that we pick that up before this podcast is done. What? Go on.
That's great. I totally neglected to do that as well. So thank you for doing your homework. But I've got some news for you, Russ. Actually, that I wonder if you'll like this or not.
Go on.
So we've been told for years that Gen Z is kind of like the sober and self-care generation, haven't we? You think about run clubs and, sober curiosity That's sort of the label that Gen Z has had for a while. And, lesser alcohol sales volumes have supported this idea. But new global data says not so fast. Turns out Gen Z's alcohol consumption is rising, and it's rising fast enough to catch up to close the gap with older generations. So we're back. Like, it turns out it was just an aberration. Likely due to, I guess, maybe some COVID lockdowns, like sort of delayed young people getting into drinking. But I guess the question here, or actually, I'll give you some of the figures first. So globally, Gen Z drinkers rose from about 66% from March of 2023 to 73%. In the US, that swing was 46% to 70%.
Gee.
So just a massive upswing. And I believe it was even bigger in Australia as well.
Yeah,
I don't have the exact figures there as well. But so we know specifically as well that Gen Z are now more likely to choose spirits over beer, wine.
Yes, I did read that.
Yeah, they're drinking right across categories. They're doing it in bars, clubs, and restaurants more than older adults. And they're actively choosing to drink more. The survey questions were phrased in such a way that they were like, "Are you trying to drink more like tonight?" And they were saying yes.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
we're getting into it. Like, so I guess was this Gen Z sobriety narrative ever really true, do you think, or was it just reflective of broke and awkward teens that had been inside for too long?
Well, I think you're right about that. Yeah, they were inside for too long. I mean, we know that there was a cultural effect off the back of being locked up, off the back of being in your formative years confronted with a pandemic, and so that's the first generation since let's say the Spanish flu. To actually be confronted with a pandemic and the potential, the fear of that, and so what that's going to do, what that's going to do is it's going to make you behave differently for a period, and then of course what happens is you get out of jail, you're unlocked, you are sort of going full Oslo. You're bacchanalian yourself to absolutely because in the end, in your young formative years, party on, right? And as it should be is my point of view on that, Freddie. Perhaps no surprise there. This has of course been the case for not hundreds of years, thousands of years. It is deep in the DNA, in the genetics, speaking of eugenics. Not of all cultures in the world, but certainly ours. It's a big part of how we connect and socialise and form lifelong friendships. Now, maybe there's a certain sadness to that, and perhaps, but in the end, I mean, this is why I think that tax on alcohol in the Australian context has gone way too far, because sitting down and having a beer with friends is a very important part of just connection, communication, networking, finding a partner, finding friends, being not at home but being in a living room for everyone. To me, these are really critical parts of who and what we are. Yeah, and the very idea that we tax it to the bejesus is just it's nonsense. And hopefully what's going to happen is a black market in beer and spirits opens up, because that's what's happened in tobacco, right? I mean, it's insane. The tobacco tax has basically opened up the door for a black market in tobacco. And so, if you were a smoker, Freddie, you've got two choices. A packet of legal cigarettes for $70 or a packet of illegal cigarettes for, between 15 and 20. What are you going to do, mate?
It's funny to hear you say, to refer to, I guess, to almost the social infrastructure of it as well here, because I think, as we know, they are going to pubs and bars, and I guess I wanted to point to the fact that we were so quick to be like, this generation's so different, they're fundamentally going to change the way that people socialize. But of course, what was much harder to sort of wash away or push out of their minds was the fact that legitimately on every corner there is a pub, and it's the only place they can go to hang out, sort of outside of their house.
Yeah.
That, like, if the physical world doesn't change, then, like, yeah, sure, you can put them inside for a bit, but it's just a matter of time before the physical social infrastructure pulls them back into line with just the rest of, their parents and probably their children.
I love where you're going there, Freddie. That's what's the pub on the corner for then? So get rid of that.
Yeah.
And what's happening certainly here is there's a real wave of let's say people in their 20s that are going to the pubs. They're not drinking like we used to drink. It's not a binge thing that's going on. It's like more like the English drink, which is they sit on a pint, is what they talk about. So slowly consume it because they're expensive. So I suppose, here we go, tax is playing a role in minimising consumption. That's probably a good thing. So, I am maybe revising my view now. Anyway, but the other thing that's going on is that they've got fireplaces in the pubs, which they're now firing up. And I think there's a simplicity of the menus that they're back to. It's a Parmigiana, it's a hamburger, and it's a steak, and probably fish and chips, right? So simplicity of menu, trying to get the pricing right. I've had a conversation with a couple of publicans recently. Like, they work really hard. They're working really hard at not creating the most expensive, Parmigiana. They're working really hard to make sure it's high quality but well priced. And again, this is great marketing. I think we've discussed it last year. Sorry. Remember the cafe The Other Side, and The Other Side launched a $3.80 cup of coffee, right? And because they worked really hard at making sure that they could get the price down. And as a result, there's a queue, that goes, for, 20, 30 metres every single morning for people wanting to get the $3.80 coffee. Why is there a queue? Because, well, queues don't matter anymore. Like in the old days, pre-mobile, there's no way you'd stand in the queue to get a cup of coffee. But you happily stand in a queue now because you've got a mobile phone. So you're continuously connected. So there's no such thing as dead time. So a queue isn't dead time. So there's something really interesting around just getting your price right. I mean, look out for it in the US for me, right? Where there clearly is a lot of work going into sophisticated work is what I'm trying to say, like really sophisticated thinking, where we're going to make sure that we re-engineer the back end so we actually can offer good pricing to the punter in this time of, financial stress. Seems like a astute bit of marketing to me.
In the US, it's definitely, everything is everything is a machine.
Right.
And it's all about, like, and it's all like, of course, terrible coffee, but
Yeah.
you're going to get this terrible thing as quickly as possible, but it's going to be, it'll taste fine.
Yeah.
You get it quickly and it'll be cheap.
Right.
And that's my heaven. Yeah. As you know, I just got back from some time overseas. I was in Italy, and I've got to tell you, they have service stations where you go up to the bar and you have like an espresso there,
The best.
and you've got to pay for the thing like in some other room and then take your ticket to another room. It's clearly a very different culture there of, this is going to be slow. It's not going to be super expensive, but it's going to taste great. But yeah, I hope you're not going anywhere in a rush. So,
One of my,
speed, quality, price,
yeah,
pick two, and that's your culture.
One of my favourite memories when I was first in Italy, so a long time ago, was a truck driver pulling up at one of those, those fantastic, service stations that you're referring to where the coffee is insanely good. And the truck driver pulled over and had an espresso, yes, but also had a 7-ounce glass of beer. Look, this is how good's this joint, right? It just, well, because they trust the consumer, don't they? They know that obviously they're not going to go into the service station and have 48 pints. They're just going to have a little 7-ouncer and just wet the whistle, little espresso, and then move on.
Put a bit of a bet on as well. I saw in some of these places they've got they've got pokies machines in there as well.
That's it. Yeah, put a bet on. Exactly. Oh, that's excellent.
Oh, just another Wednesday.
Anyway, so all right,
continental Europe.
let's keep tracking alcohol consumption. So they're all the tax players because you know what's happening as of today in Australia. There's a 2-speed tax system where the beer has now got flat excise. There's a moratorium, a 2-year moratorium on the increase on beer tax, but spirit tax is going up twice a year. Right, so So when you buy your gin and tonic, I think probably more than 50% of the price of the gin and tonic is tax.
Yeah, it would be. Oh my God, it just makes no sense.
Yeah, leave us alone. You know what? In fact, there might be a new political party that you and I are going to launch, and do you know what it's called? It's just called "Leave Us Alone."
You're gonna absolutely hate this next story, Russ.
Okay, right, okay, go on.
So the UK's Online Safety Act, which you may have heard of, sort of at the time it was proposed, it was meant to be a crackdown on like adult websites and like fringe social media platforms.
Yep.
But it's now making its way to mainstream platforms like Spotify. So this legislation was meant to sort of protect kids from seeing porn and harmful content.
Yep, fair.
But now it's requiring platforms like Spotify to ask British users to verify their age via facial recognition before accessing 18 plus content, which means like, music with swear words in it.
Yeah. So, you can't listen to Snoop Dogg, smoke weed every day. You can't listen to that unless you're over 18.
Yeah. And if it scans your face and it thinks you look a bit young, you then have to upload ID, scan your ID, and attach it to the...
To listen to music.
Yes, exactly. So, halt, show me your ID before you enjoy this 50 Cent song. Obviously, some platforms, X is really the one voicing up right now saying, what are you doing? We need to get a coalition together. This is really, really weird. But yeah, I guess I just wanted, first off, like, are you concerned about this? The normalization of just like biometric surveillance and access, just at all points needing to tell people who I am
Deeply.
and like when I was born. Yeah.
Deeply, deeply, deeply concerned about biometrics, facial recognition. It is that beast has been released, Freddie. The beast is out of the cage, and I don't see how you put it back in the cage. I think it's impossible. Especially with, let's say, for example, scamming that goes on, right? So MC scammers are everywhere. And the scammer, of course, biometrics are going to help put a block between you and the scammer. So, there'll always be a reason why, an ever-increasing diminishment of our privacy, there will always be a reason why it's the, in inverted commas, right thing to do. I hate it, as you know, right? As you know, but you just get resigned to it. In the end, on the content side of things, the way I relate to it, or the equivalent, it's not quite, but let's go with me on this. You couldn't go and see a R-rated movie when you were 10. And what I think what government is trying to do is do precisely that. There's always been ratings when it came to content, and you couldn't see anyone nude on the television. You could only see certain content on the television after 8:30 p.m. You couldn't go and see a violent film unless even rated M was maybe 15 or 16. Obviously there were G-rated films available to everyone, so we sort of knew, right? There was signals that enabled content that was age appropriate, and so I don't mind actually the idea that we're trying to put in place hurdles for the platforms, which means that the 14-year-old is not watching pornography, right? I mean, that is the right thing. That is the right thing to do. It's just, of course, you open that door and then, they'll just pile on in. And it will be more and more and more regulation and more opportunity to use as, facial recognition before you listen to MC Hammer. So it's... I don't even know where to go now, mate. It's like, please. Have I told you my idea for Tasmania?
Oh, no. What's your idea for Tassie?
Completely analog, totally digital free, right? So, yeah, Tassie, the only analog state in the world, right? So, yeah,
You're inflicting
Yeah.
Luddites
Yeah.
upon an entire state.
yeah. Well, if you don't like it, then you can go live somewhere else. So, if you're in the notion, if you like the idea of the right to disconnect, I mean, the right to disconnect is in Europe. There's legislation, the right to disconnect. I love the idea of the right to disconnect. I love the idea of a society. The other idea that I reckon is a cracker is banks. Let's start a bank that only deals in cash, right? Because, right? All of a sudden, banks. If I went to my bank now and said I need $5,000, they say, "What for?" Yeah, what do you mean, what for?
None of your business.
It's none of your business. It's my $5,000. You know, what business is it of theirs that you've got to tell them where I want $5,000 of cash, please? Oh, I'm sorry, you can't have it. What are you talking about? So
There's a tagline in there about like it's your money,
Yeah.
none of our business. There's something.
Totally.
Our business is none of our business.
Well, the State Bank of Victoria very, very famously, 1980, the end line was, "It's your money, Ralph." Right? And it was this couple. It was a couple that were in bed having a discussion about money. And he was concerned that the bank wasn't giving him the $5,000 that he wanted. And his partner says, "It's your money, Ralph. It's your money." Bang, off it went. It was seriously successful. So that is evidence, given that humans don't change, given that we now know that this young generation are drinking beers like every other generation has, humans don't change. The idea that it is my money, not the bank's, would still resonate.
Oh, 100%. That's Chase's over here in the US. That's their tagline. Make more of what's yours.
Good line, right?
Yep. Bank of America, what would you like the power to do?
Oh, really? Good stuff, Freddie.
Yeah. It's all
This
American, just sort of, it's yours. Take it.
Well, absolutely. This is the joy of America, though. Seriously, I love the joint, right? They love brands. They want to make money, and they love ideas. And I'm sure I've told you about it when I was in a pub the first time I was in the States, and I asked this bloke what he did, and he said he sold the bags for vacuum cleaners. Have I told you this?
Yeah.
I have told you. Right, I move on.
Yeah.
We've done that one. Edit that one out.
Got it.
Hey, speaking of end lines,
Yep.
Joe Aston.
Hit me.
Okay, so the initial one that I had was just simply release the hounds.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
Rampart.
Yeah, Rampart news. So, and again, let's remind the listeners of sort of, the pillars and the personality here. We don't have to hit them all, but, Rampart news, sort of a premium online news site where you can sort of, be first to hear about the inner deals around sort of, Australian finance and commerce.
That's it. So release the hounds. I quite liked that. So that would be your more sort of crazy version, the version which reflects the personality of the brand, perhaps. And the straighter version, which may be better, I'll leave it up to you. You can be the creative director. The Rampart, where the pen is mightier than the sword.
Oh, nice.
It's tough,
Yep.
isn't it? We might have to ask Joe.
Yeah, we've got to submit where the pen is mightier than the sword. Although if it's like Rampart, where the pen is are we getting a bit too medieval?
Well,
you know what I mean?
I know, but that's why I thought, it's connecting with Rampart because of the sword, right? So I liked it because it does relate to the brand name. And I do think the brand name needs a bit of help with regard to why have you called it Rampart? I think
Yep.
I think a little bit of assistance. So if you had Rampart where the pen is mightier than the sword, it sort of helps you understand why it's called Rampart. Yeah. So I like it for that reason. However, I do like Release the Hounds because it's just crazy. Yeah. It's like in the UK, there was a thing called a dime bar, right? And the dime bar, the end line was, "It's slightly rippled with a flat underside." Because the dime bar had a ripple on the top and it was flat on the bottom. It's slightly rippled.
I guessed.
Yeah.
I guessed.
It's slightly rippled with a flat underside. Oh, more of that, please.
More of that. More just weird stuff.
Yeah, release.
More just weird ads.
Just
release the hounds.
Release the hounds. Rampart. Release the hounds. See you, Freddie.
See you, Russ.